guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about my diagnosis with type 1 diabetes. I have been type 1 diabetic for, I think it's exactly 7 years since I was diagnosed on a bank holiday weekend 7 years ago. So I thought I'd do this video just to sort of let you have a glimpse into my life and just as a thing to get it off my chest, because I don't really talk about it to people. So if you're interested and you want to learn more about diabetes, then just stay tuned. Okay, so before we start, I am going to address I have had a massive haircut. I had it all like chopped off, gone very short, and I love it. So if I look different from all my other videos, that is why. So today I'm going to be talking about how I got diagnosed with diabetes exactly 7 years ago. I think this weekend. Yeah, it's 7 years ago this weekend. And how it's affected me. So 7 years ago I would have been 11. So I'm 18 now, so I would have been 11 at the time. And when I was 11 I was very active. I did swimming, I was in the netball team at school. I used to do all the clubs after school and things like this. But I was not a very healthy person. I didn't really drink a lot of water in the day, which will become important in a minute. I didn't really drink a lot of water in the day. I didn't really eat the right stuff. An average 11-year-old person. So in the summer of 2011, the first thing I remember is I went to Manchester to go visit my auntie, and in that time in Manchester I started drinking a lot of water, but not a lot that people noticed. It was more of a lot for me because I didn't really drink a lot anyway, so people were just like, yeah, she's drinking water, she's finally getting healthy, she's actually looking at herself and thinking that she will benefit from this water. So no one really noticed that at the beginning. It was a trip to Alton Towers where I started to feel a bit funny, like something wasn't right. We went to Alton Towers. I felt very tired, very lethargic, a bit off, but everyone was like, it's puberty, you're fine, and we carried on. We ate, I think I had 2 sugar donuts, and I ended up sitting in the toilet for ages because I was just drinking loads of water and just peeing it all back out. Bit TMI, but there you go. And I was just so not feeling myself, and I can still remember it now, and I felt absolutely rubbish. And it got to the point that at the end of the day I was just like, I don't want to go on any more rides. I've had enough. I don't really remember the rest of the trip there. That was the only day I really remember. So then we come home, and I used to have a lot of time with my nan and granddad, because my nan and granddad used to look after us in the holidays since my parents were at work, and they took us up to London. And we went to the Greenwich Meantime Museum, which was really nice. And I need to stop saying "and," it's really annoying. Went to the Greenwich Meantime Museum, where we went with my brother, my cousin, my nan and granddad, and we had such a nice day. But I decided to wear a massive jumper, a bit like this, big baggy jumper, and we had loads of water, and I drank my whole bottle of water, drank my cousin's bottle of water, drank my nan's bottle of water. And I remember at one point feeling very like faint, and I was leaning up against one of these cabinets feeling like I was going to pass out, so I had to go outside and sit in the fresh air, and it just sort of plummeted downhill from there. That night I went back to my nan and granddad's. I drank a whole litre of water on the train, got back to home, went to the toilet. I then drank another like massive jug of water when I got home, and then went to the toilet again, and it was just an unhealthy amount of fluids that I was drinking. And this is my kind of only symptom that I really noticed, and it is one of the symptoms of type 1 diabetes, is extreme thirst. So yeah, that evening, it was Thursday, I think it was Thursday the 24th, bear with me. excuse me, it was Thursday the 25th of August in 2011, and I went back to my nan's, and my nan sat me down and she said, we think something is wrong with you. And I said, what is it? Like, I was really scared. I was like, I don't know what this is. And she said, we think you have diabetes, but your mum and dad are going to take you to the doctors and we're going to get you checked out and make sure you're okay. But I just bawled my eyes out because I didn't know what was going on, because diabetes isn't taught. It isn't taught at primary school level. It isn't really taught at secondary school level. It's kind of this thing that people joke about. So people joke, oh, I'm going to eat so many sweets, I'm going to end up diabetic. But that's kind of a broad spectrum of diabetes. I'll explain later what it kind of is and the different types, but I'll just carry on my story at the moment. So the Friday the 26th, I was taken up to the doctors by my dad, who kind of thought it was we all thought it was kind of a wasted trip. Like, there's nothing wrong with me, I'll be fine, it's not going to affect me, they're not going to find anything. I got up there and I did the usual checks. So I did a urine sample and that came back with a high amount of sugar in it. And then they tested my blood sugar, and an average blood sugar would be, so if you don't have diabetes, your average blood sugar would be between about 4.8 to about 8. So that's quite a small spectrum. So that's what your blood sugar would be. Mine was so high that they just read HI, which is above 32. So I had blood sugars above 32, and the doctor said to my dad, you need to get out of the hospital now. Now at this time, my hospital had not even opened fully, so I was taken up to Pembury Hospital and I was on the children's ward, and I just remember for a good couple of days just crying my eyes out and not being able to come to terms with it and not really understanding what was going on. I had to start doing insulin injections, which the nurses did for me, and then I had to do them for myself because I was old enough to do them myself. No one else needed to do them for me. And then that was the Saturday. So the Saturday was all about learning about diabetes, which was really quick considering there's a lot of different aspects that can happen. And then the Sunday we were literally left on our own. No one came in to check on us. No one really came in to check my bloods. And then the Monday I was sent home from the hospital without seeing the specialist doctor. Now this is all happening a week before I started secondary school. So I got diagnosed on the Friday and I started secondary school the following Friday. And that's a scary experience for anyone, let alone someone that's just been diagnosed with a new condition. So I spent the week learning to inject, learning to kind of do all the things independently. So yeah, that's my diagnosis story. So it was kind of quick. I didn't go into a coma like some people do. We caught it very quickly. But in these 7 years, it has been a whirlwind of getting to know my body. As you can tell, I'm not the smallest person. I kind of am a big person, but that is not, I'm not going to say it's nothing to do with my diabetes, it doesn't help, but that is to do with me. So yeah, I don't know how to put this is so awkward. So that's how I was diagnosed. On a day-to-day basis, I no longer inject, not because I'm not on injections, it's because I'm on something called an insulin pump, which is just a small pod that sits on my arm, my stomach, my thighs, or my back. At the moment it's on my back. And it's full of something called insulin. Now insulin, if you think of it like a key, so sugar is a padlock, and then you have insulin, which is a key, and the insulin unlocks the sugar to then produce it into something more usable by the body, so it doesn't just go straight through you, which is what happened to me. That it was being absorbed into my bloodstream, it was being absorbed places it shouldn't have been absorbed, and that is what insulin is. You all have it. It's produced by the pancreas, which my pancreas is now kind of kaput. It's just kind of floating there in my body. And yeah, so I feel like I'm going a bit round in circles. Sorry if this is a bit confusing. I'm not really sure how to explain this. There are also 2 types of diabetes. You have type 1, which is what I've got, and then you have type 2, which is what older, I would say older people, but it can be anyone, and so can type 1. It's kind of everyone, but it's mainly type 1 is known as juvenile and type 2 is known as like an older person's diabetes. The difference is my diabetes is caused possibly by a virus that I contracted when I was younger, that started making my immune system destroy parts of my body, which was my pancreas. And then type 2 is usually caused by diet. Now it's not to say that just because you don't diet that you're gonna end up with type 2 diabetes, and just because you've got a really bad virus doesn't mean you're gonna end up with type 1. That's just kind of how they explain it. So my one is controlled by testing my blood sugars and using insulin, but it also means I can eat like a normal person. I eat rubbish, I eat McDonald's, I eat sugar, I eat sweets. If you ask any of my friends and my family and my boyfriend, who keeps telling me not to eat all this stuff, that is what I do. Whereas type 2, you have to be very strict on your diet. There's low carbs, you can't eat certain things, you can't have sugar. It's just a completely different ball game. So my one is kind of a bit easier, but I will never get rid of it unless they create a cure. Whereas type 2, some people can go into something called like remission, a bit like cancer, where you get rid of it, but you still have to test your blood just to make sure they're okay. So yeah, on a day-to-day basis, I test my blood sugar, which I can do on camera right now, which I probably will, and I just inject. There are other complications which come with diabetes sometimes. I have an underactive thyroid, which is a hormone deficiency, which can make you very tired, can make you put on weight, and everything like that. So everything like that makes absolutely no sense, but it can cause some problems with your body. In the 7 years I've been diagnosed, I have met so many nice nurses, so many nice doctors. I don't really have any funny stories or any dramatic stories. My diabetes is a bit boring because I read about these things online and everyone's like, oh yeah, I've had a coma. Not that it's a nice thing to go into a coma, but I just feel like maybe I'm a fake. I don't think I've got any funny stories, other than the fact my immune system is very low. So last year I had 6 lots of antibiotics, which doesn't sound a lot, but in 12 months that is a lot. And I can go from being absolutely fine, so I was fine on a Friday, and by the Monday I had severe tonsillitis, I had a throat infection, a chest infection, an ear infection, and I was just severely unwell. So that is how quickly things can change for me. So I do go for regular checkups at the doctors, I have regular blood tests. This year, touch wood, has been my best year ever at the moment. Touch wood again, I haven't had any antibiotics and we're in month 8, so that is good. I'm feeling a lot more upbeat at the moment because it does drag me down because I don't feel like a normal human. I see other people just being able to sit down and eat a meal. I have to sit there, try and figure out the they're carbohydrates in the meal because that's what's produced as sugar. I have to sit there and work that out. I then have to put that into my blood machine. And it's just this whole fiasco of trying to figure things out. But there is a lot of support out there. I don't use this, but there are some forums out there. I went on a diabetic retreat back in 2012, which one was amazing because I met other people with diabetes. These were all kids about my age. We did so many activities, people knew how to look after us, knew what we were doing, and I also got to see loads of people with different insulin pumps because there's so many different brands out there. They all do the same thing, but they're all slightly different, so they'll give things different ways. I don't know how much to say because I don't know if anyone's actually going to be watching this or whether they're actually going to be interested, but I'm interested and I like being able to talk about this. It really helps me. Oh, I do have a slightly funny story. When I was on my last insulin pump, I don't actually have it, I don't think, anymore. My last insulin pump was, it was a box, so it's about, I'd say it's about this big. Hello. It's about this big, and then it had a tube in that could be between 30 centimetres, 60 centimetres or 80 centimetres long, and it was ridiculously long. It used to just get in the way of everything. And I also used to have something called a cannula, which is just a plastic needle that sits under the skin, doesn't hurt, I don't feel it. I've got one at the moment. I don't feel them, they're not in any veins, it's just sort of sitting on my skin. I had one of those in and it was on my thigh, and we did sports day and I got very, very hot and sweaty. And sorry, that was my pump now, it beeps a lot, it's the kind of thing it does. So on sports day I got very, very hot and sweaty, as to be expected. It's usually summer when you do sports day, which I think is a bit random, but there you go. I'm not a massive fan of running or anything like that, and I got very sweaty everywhere, even my thighs were sweaty, and my cannula was on my thigh, and it actually got so sweaty it unstuck, and that was the first time I've ever had that happen. It unstuck. I had a second one with me, put that in, and that fell off as well. So just a word of warning, if you ever have diabetes, if you have diabetes and you use an insulin pump or anything like that, or you're thinking about getting one, just beware that sometimes it can unstick if you get a little bit sweaty. I think it might have been a dodgy batch of cannulas, which really doesn't help. I feel like I'm rambling. My diabetes doesn't really restrict me. I have to think about it a bit more, so when I go out on like walks with Callum, I can't just sort of go out for a walk and not really think about things. I have to test my blood sugar before I go. I have to make sure I don't have a hypo, which is a very low blood sugar where you can pass out, you can go into a coma, it can be very horrendous. I've never experienced it. The lowest I've been, as I said, you have to be between 4.8 to about 8, so between those marks. If you're lower than that, it's not that you've got diabetes, it's just sometimes you have a bit of a funny spell. The lowest I've been is 2.1, and I noticed it, but I wasn't unconscious or anything like that. But it is scary because if I was to have a severe hypo in the night, I might not wake up. Luckily I'm very hypo aware, I'm very hyper aware. You know, people say you're hyper and you're like crazy, that you got a lot of sugar. That's me, but I'm not crazy. When you're hyper you feel very, very lethargic, you're not buzzing off the wall. I'm at my best, and I think I am quite alright at the moment because I feel quite happy. It's very weird. I'm not really 100% sure. I'm going to test my bloods on camera now for you. But if you're in the normal zone, you're a normal person. Who's normal anyway? Who wants to be normal? So I'm gonna go grab my blood machine and I'll be back, and I will sit down and I will test my bloods. I won't show any blood on camera because obviously I know people are a bit fearful of bloods, but I will show you the step-by-step of how I test my bloods on a day-to-day basis. So I'll be back in a second. And I'm back. So I have this is my pouch of diabetic stuff. This literally just holds my equipment for testing my blood, and if my pump fails, it's also got a insulin pen in it. So it's a bit of a mess. I'm not the cleanest person, it sounds horrible, but it's not like covered in blood or anything. So this is my blood machine. This is the Omnipod, which is very nice. I do like being on Omnipod. I have been on it for about 3 months, and I would say it's the best decision I've ever made to move on to the Omnipod. So what I do is I have my blood machine, I switch it on, and I just have to confirm that it's me, and it comes up with this screen. Now all these words mean absolutely nothing if you don't know about diabetes, but last BG at the top was 4.1. BG stands for blood glucose, so that was my last testing. 4.1, which is actually pretty good for me. It's a little bit on the low side, it's kind of pushing it, but it is very good for me. So I grab my blood machine, I switch it on. I then have these strips, and these are what I put the blood on to be tested. They have no blood on at the moment. They look like this. They're very tiny. You've got a nice little butterfly on them. So oh, it's gone off again. In that time it's already gone off. Okay, so I then place that in the bottom of my blood machine, and it comes up with a code, and then it says apply blood sample. Now the way I do that is I have my trusty, this is very bad, this is an Accu-Check pen, so I've got Omnipod with Accu-Check, different brands, but I love this. This is my favourite. I call it a pricker. I don't actually know what it's called, but I call it a pricker. This pricks my finger, so I love this. So I push it in my back. My camera decided to fill up, so I take my pricker and I take one of these two fingers. I can use this one, but I hate using my little finger, it just annoys me. So take one of these two fingers. I don't use this one because this one's got quite a few nerves in the end of it, and I just prick the end of my finger. I'm not going to show it because it's a horrible thing. You will hear the noise, it's a big click, and I might jump. I'll use this hand. So I just place it on like that. I prick my finger, I squeeze out a tiny, tiny bit of blood, and then I place that onto there. And then it comes up with checking. So that is a bit high, so I will have to correct that. But that is what I do on a day-to-day basis, and then I literally just press. This is very, I love having a pump, because when I was on injections it was more difficult. So I then press this button here. It's all in reverse, it's very annoying. So that says 15.2, I click this. I then click no, that I'm not going to eat. It's now telling me that I should have no units. Now, this is one thing that kind of annoys me about the Accu-Check, is that it sometimes tells me that I don't need any insulin when I know I do. So I just override that and put in the amount I think I need. Okay, so I'm going to read out the definition of diabetes, and then I'm also going to read out the difference between type 1 and type 2. So bear with me. Okay, this is the dictionary definition of diabetes. It is a disease in which the body's ability... Let me start again. It is a disease in which the body's ability to produce or respond to the hormone insulin is impaired, resulting in abnormal metabolism of carbohydrates and elevated levels of glucose in the blood. Basically, what that means is my blood, or my body, doesn't produce insulin, and it causes the sugar in my bloodstream to shoot up, which will causes confusion. Sometimes it causes your head to pound and things like that. It's horrible. You'd think I'd be feeling that at the moment. I'm kind of fine at the moment, which is weird, so we're just going to stick with that. And now I'm going to find out the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Okay, let's go on the actual Diabetes UK website. Okay, so type 1 diabetes can occur at any age, but is most commonly diagnosed from infancy to the late 30s. So it kind of is any age between then. So I was 11, but you could get it. I know someone whose mother was 50 when she was diagnosed, which is kind of late, but it still happens. It's not something that after a while you won't get it at all. With this type of diabetes, a person's pancreas produces no insulin at all. It occurs when the body's own defence system, the immune system, attacks and destroys insulin producing cells, which is what I said. So my immune system decided to attack my pancreas and the cells so that my body couldn't produce insulin anymore. No one actually knows why the body does this, it's just something that happens. I think there's other conditions that are caused by this, that it attacks a different part of the body, but don't take my word on that, I'm not 100% sure. But I have a condition which is caused by my own body, but it is not caused by the food I ate when I was younger. The only treatment for type 1 diabetes is insulin, which is usually injected or infused via pump. So that is basically what type 1 is. Type 2 is a more common, common type of diabetes. So when I met Callum, I didn't tell him that I was diabetic because I thought he would think I was really strange and wouldn't want to be with me. So I know it's not true, but my dad told him that I was diabetic, and it's because when I was younger people used to take the mick because people thought diabetes, ha ha ha, you're fat, that's why you have it. And there's always this like joke that if you have that ice cream sundae is going to give me diabetes. It's kind of like a running joke, but people don't understand that it's not just that causes it. So it makes it very difficult to talk to people about it and open up about it. Over 90% of people with diabetes have type 2 in the UK. But I know type 1 is increasing, or I don't know whether it's increasing or whether I'm just noticing it more because I'm diabetic, but I'm not sure. It usually affects over 40s. However, it's becoming more common among young people due to the lifestyle we're living. So eating all that sugar, eating all that Big Mac and the McDonald's, which I know I do, but eating all that is not healthy. Eating it all the time, a good home cooked meal is so much better than going out and buying a takeaway or something, and it can possibly save your children from having a disease like diabetes, which is, I'm going to say, a life-changing disease because it's not an easy thing to live with. I have my good days and I have my bad days. And I'm still coming to terms with it. I've been diabetic for 7 years and I'm still not 100% convinced I'm diabetic sometimes. So people with type 2 diabetes either don't make enough insulin or don't make insulin that the body can use properly. The cells in the body become resistant to insulin, making a greater amount of insulin necessary to keep blood glucose within the normal range. So type 2 can usually be managed through diet, exercise and self-monitoring blood glucose, at least in the first few years following diagnosis. However, if it does carry on, you can end up on injections, which is not the way that people want to go. There are so many. If you want to learn more about diabetes or anything diabetes related or any of the other conditions you can get, or you're just curious, because I know I would be, if you go on to the JDRF, I'll leave a link below and I'll also bring it up on the screen, the JDRF website, and also Diabetes UK. There are a lot more scientific research is going on, and there are a lot of stories of people who have been diagnosed that are a bit more interesting than mine. I did write my own one, I'm not sure it's still on there. I did have my own story on Diabetes UK. So anyway, there are stories on there of people being diagnosed. There is also more information if you're curious. There's also the list of symptoms, which I might as well tell you because I know that, but don't let it scare you, because if you have any of these symptoms, it's probably not diabetes, it's something else. It's if you have like a lot symptoms of diabetes. Okay, this video is going to be very long. So the first one, which is what I had, is increased thirst and frequent urine. Put a teeth back in. Frequent urination. There's also bedwetting, which I didn't have, but I know that can happen. Extreme hunger, unintended weight loss, which I definitely had. I was so skinny and I didn't even notice. So my collarbone used to stick out here. I was very, very thin. Irritability and other mood changes, which my parents thought was just adolescence, but it was possibly this. Fatigue and weakness, and also blurred vision can come along with it. Okay guys, that's the end of my video. I hope you really enjoyed today and learnt something new, and that you've taken something away from this. Not that I think you will, but it's a video. Don't forget to check out the links below about diabetes type 1 and type 2. I can't remember what I was going to say. I know what I was going to say. So don't forget to check out the links below with information about type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and to find out more people's story. If you have any more questions, don't be afraid to ask them. Comment them below. Like and subscribe to my channel. I feel like I'm really rambling now. Like and subscribe to my channel so you can catch more of my content. And I hope you have an amazing week and you've had an amazing bank holiday Monday, and I will see you in the next one, guys.